Storms come and go, even on a mountain high or the valley low. Never let your faith go. Oh, never let your faith go. I've been there before, so confused and know which way to go. Stressed out, words so crazy, might as well stay in the house. You're trying to rise up, got tourist disguise, they look like us. What? We gon' be alright. Come on. We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. Y'all believe that? Say it. Alright. We gon' be 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 alright. Come on, tell 'em. Alright. In these fast days, evil times will come and it's here today. Look at all the hate, senseless crime and murder. Human trafficking, racism, police brutality, bullying and rage, trying to mistake. Let your kingdom come, let your will be done. Let your glory rise, let your sun shine. Through the dark clouds, even the storm and the rain, we will shout. All right. We gon' be alright. 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 Hey, don't you worry about it. Oh, no. Don't lose no sleep over it. Oh, no. I believe and receive every word that you promised me. We gon' be alright. Hey, say we gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. Say we gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. Hey, don't worry about it. Don't need no sleep over it. Oh, no. I believe and receive every word. Come on, listen up. We gon' be alright. Say we gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. Say we gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. Don't worry about it. Oh, no. Hey, don't worry about it. Oh, no. I believe and receive every word that you promised me. We gon' be alright. Hey, say we gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. Hey, the battle isn't yours, it belongs to the Lord. Say we gon' be alright. It's gonna be alright. It's gonna be alright now. It's gonna be alright. It's gonna be alright.
Or maybe I can come up with a tune. Church what? Church who? That's it. Church what? Church who? Church you. Church what? Church who?
We, the members of the Libertarian Party, challenge the cult of the omnipotent state and defend the rights of the individual. We hold that all individuals have the right to exercise sole dominion over their own lives and have the right to live in whatever manner they choose, so long as they do not forcibly interfere with the equal rights of others to live in whatever manner they choose. Governments throughout history have regularly operated on the opposite principle, that the state has the right to dispose of the lives of individuals and the fruits of their labor. Even within the United States, all political parties other than our own grant to government the right to regulate the lives of individuals and seize the fruits of their labor without their consent. We, on the contrary, deny the right of any government to do these things and hold that where governments exist, they must not violate the rights of any individual, namely, 1, the right to life. Accordingly, we support the prohibition of the initiation of physical force against others. 2, the right to liberty of speech and action. Accordingly, we oppose all attempts by government to abridge the freedom of speech and press, as well as government censorship in any form. And 3, the right to property. Accordingly, we oppose all government interference with private property, such as confiscation, nationalization, and eminent domain, and support the prohibition of robbery, trespass, fraud, and misrepresentation. Since governments, when instituted, must not violate individual rights, we oppose all interference by government in the areas of voluntary and contractual relations among individuals. People should not be forced to sacrifice their lives and property for the benefit of others. They should be left free by government to deal with one another as free traders, and the resultant economic system, the only one compatible with the protection of individual rights, is the free market.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. How are y'all doing? I got my mic fixed from last night, so I hope, right? Yes, mic is fixed, okay. I see mic moving, so. How's everyone doing this morning? I'm doing good, got my coffee, ready to go. I tried to put in comments some stuff that I was looking over in the news this morning, and some stuff I actually woke up like earlier this week, like real early in the morning, couldn't go back to sleep, so I was looking up some news, and I noticed a few things also that I'd like to go over. The first one I hit on is this UN investigators on, so I'm going to try to bring these back to like libertarian principles, right? So a lot of international stuff, and I know the U.S. is kind of, when it comes to like borders and stuff like that, the U.S. is kind of, I don't know if say isolated or different, because we have all we have is really two borders, Canadian and Mexican border, and we both have really good relations with both countries. So there's like no real threat of invasion or bad stuff. Especially if we eliminated the drug war, then we probably would be even better with Mexico. So in Canada, there's not really. They have a whole TV series on border protection in the U.S., and most of it is all focused on the Canadian border. So it's just. And I know in Europe and Asia and stuff, I mean, you're surrounded by different countries. I mean, you could have 15 borders around your country of different countries. So it's just interesting. You have to have those negotiations and those treaties and stuff between all of these different countries. So I understand that it's a lot different, and a lot of it is just open borders. You just travel across from one country to another, just like if in the United States, like traveling from state to state. And I don't think a lot of Americans realize that that type of system can actually work. I mean, they just completely get freaked out whenever you talk about opening the borders, because that's one of the a libertarian principle of open borders. And Americans just get freaked out by it, you know. And I'm like, you know, that in Europe it's like that. You know, you can go from one country to the other, and there's no like invasions or you know people trying to blow up the country. And I don't know what they're afraid of, but you know, that it actually is a major boost to the economy and stuff. If we got rid of all of these silly laws that restrict people's ability to trade with each other because the government can't tax, you know, individual interactions, you know, probably a lot better. Hey, good morning, Bruno's. How's it going, man? I got some news from your hometown too. Yeah, man, I like that one too. That was good. That was really. He actually had like 4 minutes at the end, but I think because he got this little mic, I forget what it's called, linear mic that clips on, so that we can hear him better. The G Liberty video that we did, I'm editing it now, so hopefully I'll have that out next week. But so I think he unplugged it at the very end, so like 4 minutes of the video, the last part of it. That's why it kind of seemed like it got cut off at the end. But luckily he shot that beginning part, so you kind of got the poof thing at the beginning, and then 4 minutes got completely lost because the audio just quit. So it's just how it is. But you know, he wanted to still thought it was a good video to put out. So yeah, I thought it turned out great. Yeah, I thought it was really good. And he's getting so much more of his personality is coming out in these things, especially when you get in. What we're trying to do is get him to express on the topics, you know, how he, you know, what he really thinks. So yeah, Devolvey is evolving, so it's going to be in a good way, in a really good way. So the UN has criticized Iran for denying international inspectors access to the 2 alleged sites of past nuclear activity. So why they're denying it, I don't know. It doesn't really matter. So the European powers strike a balance between working with the U.S. to preserve the credibility of the international safeguards regime and finding a way to preserve the Iran nuclear deal. You know, these nuclear, the international deals and stuff, the whole United Nations, the libertarians don't believe we should be entangled in any of these alliances or international governments or anything like that, because it's another expansion and centralization of power. As you start to expand and centralize power, then you're giving a small group of people even more power over a larger group of people. And that's what the libertarians try to avoid. What we want is the individual citizen to have the most power and control over their own life, rather than having it at a higher point. So as these United Nations and NATO and these other global communities start to expand, it actually hurts the entire global community, because you're giving more power to these organizations. And I understand that, you know, nobody wants Iran to have nuclear weapons or anything. Well, you know, it's kind of hard to tell somebody that you can't have what I have. You know what I mean? You can't tell a country that, oh, you can't have nuclear weapons to be a deterrent from somebody else launching a nuclear strike against you or launching a war against you that has nuclear weapons. You know, it's like, I mean, this is something that was ridiculous, but I remember reading it in a story years ago. North Korea said, we will dismantle our nuclear. This was, I think, before the kid took over. This was the old dictator of North Korea. He said, we will, you know, stop building our nuclear program if the United States will simply stop pointing their nuclear weapons at us. In other words, if we would just direct our nuclear weapons at somewhere else, into the ocean or something. And the U.S. said no. No, we won't do it. We won't negotiate with terrorists or something. I don't know, one of the ridiculous things that the U.S. says. But yeah, it was. That's all they asked. They were just, hey, just don't point your guns at us, and we'll stop building guns. And the U.S. was like, no. So this is how ridiculous it is when you're looking at these global these stuff like that. I mean, nuclear weapons should be completely dismantled worldwide. I mean, these things are just destroying the planet. I mean, the nuclear waste and stuff from processing and keeping these things maintained, and it's just really. I mean, it's like they talk about like we need the Environmental Protection Agency when the government and the military is the biggest polluters. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, we can't dismantle the EPA, then corporations will just pollute the world, and it'll just be no. No, the government and the military are the biggest polluters worldwide, especially in the United States. So I mean, if we started breaking down the military-industrial complex and removing nuclear weapons, then hey, we might actually improve the environment some more. So anyways, yeah, and not allowing inspectors, everybody's going to make it seem like Iran's the bad guy in this, but I mean, it's their country. You know what I mean? It should be allowed. This is liberty we're talking about here. This is the libertarian perspective, and Iran has a right to choose who they want to look at what in their own country, in their own facilities and stuff. And I know it sounds like, oh, but we have to make sure. No, we don't, man. Until they do something that's threatening, then leave them alone. You would want them to leave you alone, right? It's just that's just how libertarians think. And the United States walking around like the big bully on the block doesn't help either. So that's kind of what I wanted to hit on the whole Iran inspector thing. Like I said, taking it to a libertarian perspective. Bruno's says, you got open borders. Why does the U.S. police the world? That's an excellent question. Excellent question. Because we refuse to vote libertarian. That's why. It's not necessary. All we're doing is creating more enemies. This just drives me crazy because I've been there. I served in the army for 25 years. I've been to Iraq. I've been to Saudi Arabia. I've been to Israel. I've been to South America a few times, and all we do is create more enemies. Every bomb that we drop that harms a civilian or even harms another military person, all it's doing is putting in the minds of the children and the other citizens of that country that the U.S. is causing damage, and it's just creating more enemies. Right? It doesn't help anything. It's just creating more. I mean, There's diplomacy. I mean, have we even tried diplomacy in Syria and Afghanistan and Iraq and all the other places that we are at? Have we ever tried? It doesn't seem like it. It doesn't seem like there was a really strong effort. I think the last real diplomat we had as a president was John F. Kennedy. He really, yes, the Cuban Missile Crisis and all that stuff, he put up a blockade and said, no, you're not parking your nuclear weapons off the coast of the United States. And, really, really scary part, really close to nuclear war at that point. But if, it's common knowledge that if JFK would have remained president, the Vietnam War would have never happened. Because he believed that putting U.S. soldiers in harm's way was the very last resort, and only after negotiation within Congress. And now we just have the president has the power to just throw troops wherever he wants, and it's way overused. And then we get in these entanglements with the UN and NATO and stuff, and now we basically became the police of the world. And it's something that I remember as a kid that my dad used to talk about, saying that we should never become the police of the world. He also used to say we never should get entangled in the Middle East because these people have been fighting these wars for thousands of years. You know what I mean? So just leave it alone. And what happened? We ended up getting entangled in it. Yeah, but I was reading that you guys in India, the India-China. That's another thing I have here is this: the India-China border dispute is really frightening. I mean, yeah, I got China in my news here in a few different places. Where's it at? Did I not save it? I guess I didn't save that one. But anyways, in your, it's like the northeastern, or actually the east and northeast areas of India. I'm pointing this way, like the map's in front of me. It should be, it would be like this way for you guys. So right, the eastern side of India, where you border with China, and there's like these big, if you look on a world map, you can see it. There's these big gaps where you don't even see, and there's like a lake area there. And so India and China both patrol these areas like it belongs to them, and it's like a no border zone, where and there's all these skirmishes, and I think some people fell off cliffs and stuff, like 12 Indian soldiers died in this last skirmish in it started with an L, the province out there, the little border area. What do they call it? I need to find that. I need to find that thing, because and I think it all stems from the atrocious invasion of Tibet that took place in the 1950s. This is like a remnants of that. Like, so when China invaded Tibet, and the monks there, the Buddhists didn't really put up a big fight against the Chinese army, so they just claimed China as their own. And I think a lot of the animosity with China, with at least the Chinese government, is the fact that India is still housing the Dalai Lama, which they consider a separatist and like a terrorist, which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. But since they invaded Tibet and basically occupied the country, and now they want to try to claim large portions that, and of course India had no problem when Tibet occupied, because the monks are like, hey, you want to use it, go ahead, But now that China owns it, they're probably just looking for another place to dump their nuclear waste, you know what I mean? So they're, trying to just take chunks out of India's country. I don't know where the dispute is really stemming from, but they just can't seem to come to an agreement. There's like this China believes one thing and the Indian government believes another thing about who owns this land. There's like these little, dotted lines where they think that the border is. And it's really kind of scary, because China and India are both nuclear powers. So, we don't need them going to war. So, and I think that's, a big deterrent from outright armed conflict over these areas. So, but I wish they would get it worked out, because any loss of life is horrible, especially if it's just, it's not really serving any kind of purpose. It's just ridiculous, because two patrols just happen to get too close to each other, I guess. So that's it. Ladakh region. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, this was pretty recent when this happened. So Zaffin says that makes sense. It's like telling an enemy secrets about another enemy while they're digging up dirt on them. Then if a fallout break out, everyone has the other's secrets, weapons, and intelligence. It's like a war that never ends, really. Exactly. And it's what's it's like it's it's like the libertarians are kind of, so you have like in America, you have this thing now, another division, another divider of our country is the globalists and the nationalists. And it's quite interesting, because the libertarians are both. We're globalists and nationalists. We believe in a global community. We believe in, free movement of people, products, and stuff. And, we believe in freedom, really. But we believe that every country is sovereign, that, every country should be able to make up its own rules. And the easiest way to end all of this aggression is through friendship and trade. It's really hard. I really have a plan to do a Libertarian Minute on this, is when you're trading with a country, like we would never go to war with the United Kingdom. because we have this trade and friendship relation with them, you know what I mean? Or Canada or Mexico, you know what I mean? Both countries have way too much to lose by going to war. And as you build up these trade agreements, then, if one country starts to do really bad things to its citizens, then the other countries can be like, hey, man, you like getting my country's products, right? We like receiving your products, but if you're going to do that, then, I'm going to have to trade with somebody else, and as it's just a neighborly thing, like if your neighbor is beating their wife or something, then you can be like, dude, man, you probably should stop that, or I'm not going to be able to be friends with you no more. You know what I mean? Not go to war with them, but you have this economic benefit that's going on, and it creates a more peaceful coexistence. The problem is we have always this threat of military force that we want to, produce. I mean, like our police force in the United States, the money that we pay for our police force is more than most countries in the world pay for their national security. And there's countries in the world that have no army, that have no military. You could look it up, like what countries have no, and they have absolutely no problem. I don't think Switzerland's military is very large at all. Of course, they have a heavily armed populace, the citizens, like the United States. We have this massive military that I think the price we pay for our military is like the combination of the top 6 countries below us. Like if you add up all the other countries, I think except for China maybe, we spend more on our military than the 6, like 3 through 9 or whatever. It's crazy the amount of money we spend on our military. And I don't really see how it's all that necessary. I mean, there's a program out there, you can look it up, that says if the entire world went to war with the United States, who would win? There's like a simulation program out there that says it, and the U.S. wins. Like we have enough military to defend ourselves against the entire world. That's nuts. That's total overkill. But it's the military-industrial complex. It's this just constant exploding thing of military defense contracting with private corporations and constant expansion of our military force. And, the government sees that as a way, because do you support our military or don't you support our military? Support the troops, and they just use that in order to get more and more money in order to feed these corporations. That's why it's called the military-industrial complex, because that industry part is the part where the corruption comes in, where the politics and corruption come in, and we have this multi-billion-dollar, behemoth of a military. So I kind of went on a rant there. So sorry, I went off the subject. That podcast you and Evolve did yesterday was so well done. You two honor the holiday and explain, better than the mainstream. Yeah, and that was the thing, is we were going to talk about Rashad Brooks a bit. We didn't, and I apologize for that. We were going to open up the phone lines a bit, but we didn't. I apologize for that. But the whole, I think that turned into like the purpose was to try to keep it on the topic of Juneteenth, because everybody seems to ignore it. I mean, we criticized Trump because he never tweeted about it. As we were going through the tweets, we didn't see where Trump had said anything about Juneteenth. But I don't think Obama even said anything about it. There was no tweets by Obama. I was reading a comment from somebody that says, yeah, I mean, he wasn't even talking about it. So, it's just interesting how it's kind of ignored. And it's like, why? Why would it be ignored? It seems like a very significant event. If that's the event that we're going to point to as the abolition of slavery, like the final end to slavery, then we need to celebrate that. That's when America was actually set free. That's when the rest of America was set free. Yeah, we fought the War of Independence and everything, but if you think about it, that only freed us from the tyranny of Britain. But it wasn't until, June 19th, 1865, when we had this entire population of our country that was finally freed from the tyranny of itself. the country, of the government, of other people. So, yeah, it should be celebrated. You're called to boycott. So India is called to boycott Chinese products. And that must be tough because it seems like everything is made in China. My coffee cup here with the U.S. Marines logo on it is probably made in China. It seems like everything is made in China. So a lot of stuff is made in India, though. So, so who wins in a war, China versus India? I don't know. There's a lot that would go into it. So, it would be really scary for that to happen because whoever began losing that war, especially I would be afraid the Chinese, if they actually started losing the war, the amount of nuclear power that they have is frightening. So, yeah, I don't think outright conflict would happen. I mean, they were calling it like the article I was reading, like this is the beginning of World War III. If India and China actually went to war, that could be the beginning of another world war, because of the alliances. You know what I mean? That's the dividing line with alliances right there. So it's really a frightening aspect of having India-China border conflicts like that. But they've kind of been happening for quite some time, but this is like the most deadly one in I think 20 or 30 years or something. So just I guess thankfully the Indian president and the Chinese are not willing to are not so eager to jump into outright conflict with the other country. So it's just really a matter of these skirmishes that are happening as, like I said, two patrols get too close to each other. I don't know, have any idea how large the Indian military is. So China's is pretty big, though. Zaffin says no one. They both have nukes. It would be a waste land and a big part of the world we couldn't venture in. So China and India would be gone. Call it a tie. Yeah, that's it. That's it. You can hear them in the background. That's the kids. Wow, man, that's weird. That you can hear the kids in the background through the closed door. That's funny. Kid play 360. Well, kids are playing. And it sounds like mom's mad at them for something. Who knows what they're doing. I think they're just... Man, these boys just wake up bouncing off the walls, man. I mean, I wish I could wake up with that kind of energy. I mean, these dudes just man, it's good to have each other, I guess, because, man, I can't keep up with them. That's crazy. There are a lot of screams in the background. That's kind of embarrassing. I try to soundproof the door as best I can, but, it's just a room in my house, my kind of office workout room in my house, so, yeah. Do the best I can. Yeah, then should I text her and say, hey, is the kids okay? They're just playing. I hear them laughing. I hear the boys laughing. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. But, so yeah, I wanted to cover that one, but also in India, I'm sorry to hear that one of your big movie stars committed suicide recently. That was pretty sad. He was a handsome looking dude too, man. I mean, it was kind of surprising. I wonder if the whole isolation thing might not have been part of it, but I was reading about that one. No, they're not watching Paw Patrol. They're not watching TV. If they're watching TV, you don't hear nothing. But yeah, the other article I was reading was about this the caste-based attack in the Nepal area, where this 21-year-old Dalit boy was going to marry a 17-year-old from a higher Mala clan. So these are, if any of my U.S. people or from around the world, the caste system in Hindu society is like you were born into this. You're basically born into it, and it's like a socioeconomic status. You know, if you're born into like a higher status, and the Dalit are like the lowest status. They were the ones who handled like dead bodies and stuff. They were the tanners and skinners and cremators and stuff like that. So they were like the lowest class of people. Now, India has passed anti-discrimination laws to try to eliminate the caste system, but like in the United States, there's just this remnants of this belief system that if you are born into a lower caste, then you are a lower person. And as with the United States, the younger generation in India, the same as the younger generation in the United States, sees the ridiculousness of this system and is really the ones who just don't comprehend it. So when I was thinking about this, you know, the 21-year-old and a 17-year-old, they see each other as being in love, and you know, they don't see that you know, prejudice or discriminatory system that the older people do. So I really think that this racist and discrimination thing is going to eventually just die off with the older people, you know. But anyways, the Dalit boy, I hope I'm pronouncing it right. So he 18 of his friends went to Sodi village of West Rakum district in order to marry the 17-year-old girl from a higher clan. And when they reached there, the girl's relatives and local villagers brutally attacked them, leaving 6 of the youths dead and 13 others injured. Their bodies were found next to a nearby river. I guess the villagers had thrown the bodies into the river. Murder charges are filed against 31 people, including elected representatives on Sunday. So this village just came out and murdered and beat these people just from being in a lower caste. I mean, that is horrible. So and it's the same thing in the United States. Sometimes it takes something horrible like that for the outcry of all the people to come together united and say, look, this needs to end. If you feel this way, you're the problem. If you feel like this is okay, then you're the problem. And I think that's the real outcry that is coming out of India now. And like I was saying before, India, as a society, as a population, has a much younger population than most of the rest of the world. So I think that younger generation is much more open-minded and more enlightened, you know, not to overuse that word, but, you know, seeing things differently like that. Yeah, that's insane, man. I mean, I started really researching and looking into the whole caste-based system in India, and it was pretty fascinating, especially in a Hindu society. You know, it was kind of surprising that well, I mean, I could see it as as establishing a hierarchy within a society, especially like ancient society, because, you know, Hindu's been around for thousands and thousands of years. So I could see it as being a basis for establishing a hierarchy within society, and also for designating certain areas for people to work. You know what I mean? I could see it like as an organizational structure. But to take it to the level of hate and discrimination just doesn't sound Hindu to me. You know, it doesn't sound Hindi. It's I don't know. I can't put that together, because I mean, Hinduism is really the birthplace of Buddhism. And Buddhism is total acceptance of everybody and, you know, the end of all suffering. I know more about Buddhism than I do Hinduism, but I do know that the Buddha was Hindu. So, I mean, he studied Hinduism before, you know, he did his thing as a Buddhist, as, you know, becoming Buddha. So yeah, it's just, it's really surprising. How that relates to libertarianism, I don't know. It's just something personal to me. I mean, discrimination is completely, you know, there's libertarian. There's no room for that in libertarianism. I mean, it's your liberty's in. You know, if you want to be racist or not like people, then that's fine. That's your liberty. You can do that. But your liberty ends where mine begins. So as soon as you have any action against me based on that racist flag, that's when we have a problem. That's when you're violating my liberty. So yeah, it was so this is really just a personal thing. So that's all I'm doing is reading it right out of this news article, and I don't know how good it's IndianExpress.com. I don't know how. Maybe you guys can help me out. How trustworthy is that as a news source for Indian news? I don't know. So, y'all are gonna make me want to go to India one day, though. Actually, I would like to. I would like to visit. Yeah, that the whole thing about the delete were untouchable. Like you weren't even supposed to. Like if you touched them, you would be polluted. You know, like somehow they were that is, and they ostracize. So this was like 1963. They abolished the caste system and criminalized caste-based discrimination, including untouchability, in 1963. Isn't that crazy? So we passed actually John F. Kennedy wrote the Civil Rights Act in 1963. In the same year that India is passing laws to abolish the caste-based system and criminalize discrimination against it on it, including untouchability, ostracism of a specific caste. At the same time you all were doing that, we were writing up our Civil Rights Act of 1960. That's what I'm talking about, people. Is as a human race we evolve together. I mean, I don't have no idea if those two things are completely related or not. If John F. Kennedy had a friend in the Indian government and they were, talking at the time. But isn't that amazing that both of these anti-discrimination laws in two separate countries from two separate sides of the world are happening at the same time? I'm telling you, we evolve as a societal human race. That is the human race's society evolving. Like we evolved out of slavery. Now we evolved out of discrimination. Now more and more as our culture grows, worldwide culture I'm talking about, as a human culture, as we grow, our younger generations don't see anybody as being any different, no matter what socioeconomic status they are, no matter what color their skin or their national origins, or even, how they choose to, who they love or who they don't, or anything. I mean, we're total acceptance of people just based off, we're basing our acceptance of people on character. So it's really, in our lifetimes, how much we'll see happen. But if you think about it, this has been in the past 70 years, and I think that's amazing. I didn't even notice that the last time I read this article. But yeah, the same time India was eliminating discrimination through their law, we were eliminating discrimination in the U.S. with our law. That's awesome, man. Zaffa said you'd like to visit China and see their culture and martial arts. Yeah, I think it would be cool. And the Chinese people. So I belong to a company. I have a home-based business called USANA Health Sciences. We sell vitamins, supplements, stuff like that, health-based stuff. But in China, it's called baby care. So a U.S. company is not allowed to own anything in China. So USANA wanted to expand. They had this big cry to open a Chinese market. So USANA basically took over baby care, which is a baby vitamin, and they started producing and selling USANA products in China. So it's a network marketing company. I don't know if you know what network marketing is. I think we are in India also. USANA, I think, is in India also. Or direct sales. So I like direct sales better. So, the individuals, sell the products and they earn commission, but they can also sign up other distributors to sell products and earn commission, and everybody earns commission off of everybody else's sales within that particular tree. So that's how it works. So the, USANA has huge, they blew up in China. So I mean, it's just huge in China, and we would have international conventions in Utah at the USANA headquarters. And so we would have this massive delegation from China that would show up. And me, I am a culture addict, so like you could call it. So if I see somebody or meet somebody from a culture that's separate from mine, then it's like an interview for me. I want, what's it like? How is it here? This, and I'm just fascinated by when people talk about their culture. And yeah, the Chinese culture and the Chinese people are awesome, man. They're terrific. I mean, so kind, so open, so eager to get to know you, and I mean, it's great. I mean, they're just like anybody else, really. It's the governments that we're always judging countries on their government, and it's not that way. The Chinese government, I mean, most of the people in China, they're proud to be Chinese too. I mean, we look at them like, oh, you guys are communists. They're proud to be Chinese. They're proud of where they come from. But a lot of them don't like how their government's being ran, just like in our country. I'm a proud American, but I don't like the direction that our government's going. That's why I want to change it. Now, the thing in China is, it's so difficult for them to change it because it's a communist country. You know what I mean? The power is all consolidated. So they're really kind of at the mercy of their government. And that's sad because they really love their country, and it's a beautiful country too. So yeah, it's just, I've never been to China. That's the only experience I can share with you is the people I talk to at our international conventions, the Chinese people I've talked to there. I was really impressed. So, you would think that, it's so oppressive and that people are miserable, but it's not like that, Buddhism has a unquestioning devotion to lineages, traditions, lamas, ajahns, and Zen masters. This is bad. Really? I don't see it that way, because even in the Buddha's Dharma, he says, question everything I say. That's kind of where the expansion of all the different, different separations of Buddhism. There's like all these different Buddhist schools or teachings or whatever that are separate, is because the Buddha said, question everything even I've said. He never claimed to be a god or to be something to be idolized. So I don't know. I mean, that could be true. I don't know how the Buddhist culture is itself. All I know is what I've studied of it myself, of the actual religion myself. So I couldn't say. It's more worship of the Buddha rather than application of the Dharma. Well, that would be a shame, because that's not what the Buddha intended. Absolutely not. So, from my understanding of Buddhism, that's not what the Buddha intended. I know there is a lot of lists in Buddha, like there's the 9 pillars and the 7 thises and the 4 things, and I'm not a Buddhist. I just really appreciate the thousands of years of study of human suffering and the human spirit. So I'm curious though, how do you know what caste somebody is in? Do they dress a certain way? Do they look a certain way? I mean, it's curious. I was curious about that. I mean, I understand that they're poor, but you can have poor people of other castes also, right? So, or you just know, if it's local, I guess you just know that. I mean, I guess. So there's been some protests, I guess. You have a National Human Rights Commissioner and the United Nations, huh? The National Deletes Commission. So is this discrimination really focused in Nepal, or is it around the country that this kind of stuff happens? That's something else I'm wondering about. Like I said, I'm a culture person. I love hearing about other people's culture and what happens. So, Bruno's Libertarian Devil. It's about points to awakening and liberation through seeing the emptiness of self-existence, of I and my, and inquiry into dependent arising, not idolizing Buddha. Wow, that was really good, Bruno's. Yeah, you said it way better than I did. You said it way better than I did. Apparently, you know more about Buddhism than me. So, but I mean, it's possible that people do see things that way. But I think it seems really difficult for people to a Buddhist to being so much about self-awareness and the the bringing the community together, humanity together, and it just seems that it would be difficult to just see Buddhism as idolizing the Buddha. It just doesn't seem like something that would. It seemed like that would be like a small portion of Buddhists. It doesn't seem like it would be. It's because the Buddha never even asked for it. I mean, well, neither did Jesus, and we kind of idolize Jesus. But I mean, he did kind of ask for it, though. Jesus did. The only way to the Father is through me, and stuff like that. So I could see that. But I think even with in Christianity, I think a lot of people focus a lot on the idolization of Jesus rather than his teachings as well, which I think is a disservice also. I think we're called to worship and to praise Jesus, but most of all, we're called to be like him, to learn from him, to learn from his teachings and his life. So, like I say, Jesus was a spirit more than he was a person. So, and you could say the same for Buddha. There's a really good book, I think, Living Buddha, Living Christ. I think it's Thich Nhat Hanh does it. He's a Vietnamese Buddhist master. I think a Zen master, and he wrote it. And there's a lot of. I think I have it somewhere. I haven't finished reading it though. I started reading it. I think I might have it on Audible. But. Yeah, Jesus over you. In case you haven't seen it, man, I got it up. If y'all want me to throw it up real quick, it's like a 2-minute video. I will give Devolvi a plug. Not that he needs it. What in the world is that? Let me find it real quick. My tag, is this it? Here we go. Give me 1 second. Pause. Hold on, Devolvi. Hold on. We have to get your... Oh, wow, I never even shut that off, huh? Take it off studio mode. Pop out. There's Devolvi. All right, let's check this thing out. You ready, Devolvi?
One of my subscribers asked 10 things I like about church. I couldn't think about 10 things right now. That's it. That's my video. Thanks for watching. Yeah, Pete. Keep it positive. I'm just playing. The video isn't over yet. There is one good thing that I'm getting from church, and that is joy. Look at this. At my church, everybody is smiling. Everybody is always laughing. They're always being nice. How may I help you? And it's fun there. Joy, people, joy. I'm always happy at church. My dad is actually more happier at church now. Joy, people, joy. Wow, joy. Jesus over you. Jesus is above or in the bottom. God is kids first. This is us without joy. We're yellow. We're messy. We need him. We need him to clean us. So you know what makes us clean? Jesus. Jesus makes us clean. He gives us joy. But now we don't have to worry about us. Are we putting him inside us? Let me show you what I mean.
So there you go, Devolvy. In case you missed it. Oh, that was a good one. That was good. He shot that so quick too. I mean, we shot 3 videos that day. We shot that one. We shot the Juneteenth video that we never put up. That we never, because just I guess didn't come out the way we wanted it. It's funny because the Juneteenth video, because we didn't put it out, I think that's why we dedicated the whole podcast last night on Juneteenth. And I think that came out so much better. We covered so much more, went into so much more detail. Speaking of Devolvy, everybody loved your video.
What? Oh, okay. Everybody loved my video. Okay. Coffee.
Yeah, coffee. Don't spill my coffee. Death will come to us all. Death is not the opposite of life, but part of it. Amen, Libertarian Devil.
Libertarian Devil.
Did we cover that on the podcast where we were talking about your little symbol? What was it? It's not absolute anarchy, but it's is it absolute anarchy? But yeah, we found it though. I was like, anarchy is not libertarian. It's close though. That was amazing. Love when he made us think the video was ending. Yeah. Who edits the Devolvy videos? Evolve edits the Devolvy videos. I'm not that good, and please don't do that in here. It's right next to the microphone, and you're just... Really, dude? Bye. I don't know what you... Do you have something to say to the people?
No.
Well, I'm trying to discuss something with him. And now you knocked over the light, and you making noise right inside the microphone, which is rude.
Yeah.
Now you unplug the light. You having a good time?
No.
Be careful with the camera plug. He almost lifted his head up and unplugged the camera now. Did he get a new mic? No, yeah, he got these little clip-on mics, so it makes it a lot easier to catch the kid's voice. So, but the mic got unplugged at the end, so you missed like 4 minutes of the Devolvy video. So stand it up, dude.
It's hard to stand it up.
No, it's not. Just spread the legs out.
Spread it how?
The 3 legs, they spread out.
It's not.
Just put it on the ground. They won't stay. There you go. Just like that.
They're gonna fall. He's like, huh?
Okay. Do a hate versus love video? Yeah, that would be good. Yep, we had a Juneteenth minute. It just didn't come out. It really, it was funny because, we were kind of right after the Tuesday podcast, we talked about it and we had this idea and it kind of felt good. And then when we actually went in to shoot it, It didn't. I think what it was, because both of us had just heard of Juneteenth. That's why I asked that question. Who's heard of this holiday before? It's ridiculous that, this thing should be huge and nobody's even talking about it. It's ridiculous. I mean, this is when the rest of our country was actually freed. It's just crazy that it's not celebrated. And then, so both of us just learned of this thing, and as we were researching it, we're like, man, this is an awesome thing to celebrate, and then I think, before we actually had that knowledge is when we talked about it Tuesday night. We talked about, we should do this video, and what we wanted to lead it is, we wanted to have it, celebrating the end of slavery, the abolition of slavery, but show how the oppression only shifted to, instead of individuals being able to oppress a particular portion of society, now it's government's ability to oppress, and how they use the welfare system to oppress the impoverished. And not that I'm saying that only black people are poor, but we covered that in the podcast last night of how the colonists, we'll call them, had a 400-year head start on the slaves. We've had 8 or 9 generational head start as far as building wealth and building knowledge through education and schooling and trades and stuff like that. These are things that you pass on to your children. You know what I mean? So encouragement to get more educated, the skills and stuff that you've learned throughout your life, you pass these things on. Well, the slaves don't have 8 generations. They're only running on about 3 generations of ability. Before that, it was just, you're born a slave. So that's the point. It's not, I'm saying that there's anything, that there's any, it's just how society has been ran. So, and as we gained in this knowledge, so we shot the video on Thursday and everything, and then afterwards, he started editing and stuff, and there was some sound problems anyway, but then, the expression of what we were trying to say, because it's such a complex issue, we tried to dip into how it was a generational thing, how only a couple generations later, the Civil Rights Act were enacted. So, and there was still all these restrictions, even on African Americans after slavery was abolished, all the way up until the Civil Rights Act, So really, they've only had since, 50 years, going on 50 years, 60 years, to where they've really had the ability to access all of the benefits of our society freely. So and that just really didn't come out in the minute that we were trying to shoot. It kind of came out as, I like the way Evolve said it. He said it came out really vain, which is not the message we want to send. We don't shoot these videos for vanity. We shoot them for, to bring light to subjects, whether, we want it to be entertaining and funny, but at the same time educational and enlightening people on the particular topic. And we don't want it to come across as, we're just showboating, or, we're just, trying to be funny or trying to be entertaining. That's not the intent. No, and I think that's how that video came out when Evolve was trying to edit it. So he just sent me a message, and he was like, yeah, this thing did not come out right. And I was just like, I didn't figure it would. It just didn't seem like it would. So that's why we never posted that Juneteenth video. I know, G Liberty series, yeah. I'm editing the first G Liberty video because I'm trying to build my editing skills, and so I've watched that Devolve video a couple of times, and I'm trying to, like the effects and stuff in there. The effects are really what keep you, it keeps it from being dry. You know what I mean? It adds a little spice to it, the music and the transitions and stuff, and that's what I want to try to improve on, and add that into the G Liberty videos as well. The kind of just the stuff that kind of keeps it exciting to watch, and instead of just a kid talking. They're almost out of energy, probably. No, not even close. These kids will go all day. No, they don't. They're not running out of energy anytime soon. I'm late. Just watched your podcast on yesterday. Learned a lot. And the Devolva video, my son wanted to do it. So I'm going out to get some food coloring today. It was bleach in the other cup, by the way. That's what actually clears the food coloring, and it's almost instant. That's why I was like, why did you know, if he would have just kept slow-mowing back, you could have actually seen it transition. So just a little bit of bleach, you pour it in, it'll dissolve the food coloring almost instantly. So to help you out with your experiment. And I took the opportunity to teach, you know, Devolvi and G Liberty a little bit about chemistry, how the components in the bleach actually break down and dissolve the food coloring. So. Messed up. What am I doing? Oh, there we go. So yeah, that was an interesting one. Here's another one I want to talk about. I haven't even really watched this one or read about it. Yeah, so I was stationed in South Korea while I was in the Army, and it seemed like every time we had a holiday or something that, you know, Pyongyang would, you know, do something in order to put us on high alert. I spent, the Christmas I was on site, you know, on alert, because Kim Jong-il, I think that was his Kim Jong-un is the son, right? He decided to do some exercises on the demilitarized zone. So Pyongyang has 2 years ago, when North Korea and South Korea agreed to work towards peace, they signed a pact to stop cross-border hostilities. And for once there was hope, but that hope is fading. Pyongyang has threatened to redeploy troops near the demilitarized border, also destroyed a liaison office meant to facilitate dialogue. Oh no, they didn't do that, did they? South Korea has allowed North Korean defectors to drop anti-government leaflets into its territory. The government in Seoul denies that and says it will no longer tolerate North Korea's behavior. So they're bickering. Oh, it's actually a video. I don't know how interested y'all are in Korean issues, but I'm trying to keep this international, so I'm interested because I was actually there. Let's see, I don't know if I can go full screen with this or not. Yeah, I can. Alright, so this is from Al Jazeera, which is a pretty reliable news source.
Once again, the Korean peninsula is on edge. North Korea says it'll send troops to the demilitarized border and resume military drills after it blew up a liaison office meant to facilitate talks. Just how bad is it this time, and can the tension be contained? This is Inside Story.
How long is this video? Oh, it's 24 minutes, man.
They signed a pact to stop cross-border hostilities, and for once there was hope for reconciliation. But now, that hope, it's hard to find. Pyongyang's threatened to redeploy troops near the demilitarized border. It also destroyed a liaison office meant to facilitate dialogue because, it says, South Korea allowed North Korean defectors to drop anti-government leaflets into its territory. The government in Seoul denies that and says it will no longer tolerate North Korea's behavior. At the moment, it's a lot of words, but could words turn into actions? More with our panel in a moment after this report from Rob McBride in Paju, South Korea.
Making its message clear and unequivocal, the destruction of the Joint Liaison Office has been widely broadcast by North Korean state-run media, accompanied by warnings that it will increase its military presence along the border separating the two Koreas. Guard posts that had been removed to de-escalate tensions will now be restored, while military exercises on the northern side of the border will be resumed, bringing this unusually strong response from the south.
Hanbando, such moves thwart the efforts and achievements made by the two Koreas to maintain peace, and the North will surely pay if these measures are put into action.
The North has blamed the South for allowing defectors to release propaganda balloons into its territory. But North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is also frustrated at his failure to get more concessions in summits with the South Korean President Moon Jae-in and with US President Donald Trump. The North, seeming to conclude the current path of diplomacy, has run its course.
Trump is just not that interested anymore, and Moon is very constrained by sanctions. I mean, that's why this thing has sort of been frozen for a year and a half. I'm just not sure that much can change in the next 6 months or 8 months.
At Paju, on the southern side of the border, relatives of people abducted during the Korean War hold a simple ceremony. Many events are being staged with the coming 70th anniversary of the start of the conflict. Lee Sang-il was a baby when his father was abducted to the north.
And my dad was in the Korean War, so another reason why it's kind of interests me, the whole Korean War thing. So yeah, that's going on in Korea. So, but I mean, it happens so much, it really does. There's just always seems to be like this roller coaster ride of possible peace and hope in Korea, and then this possibility of hostilities and stuff, and it's a roller coaster ride because that's what North Korea does in order to get stuff from the rest of the world. Is they'll start all this hostility and talk of war and all this stuff, and then the rest of the world is like, oh no, if you do that, then we're going to do this, and then they'll be like, well, we'll cease hostilities if you give us these concessions, and then the world gives them concessions, and North Korea goes back to its hole for a little while until it needs something else. I mean, for a while there, the sanctions and stuff were causing people to starve in North Korea, and it was pretty bad. That's the thing about these totalitarian governments and stuff, is it's the citizens that suffer more, and even the world governments aren't helping, because it's the citizens that are suffering. If you have sanctions against the country, you're not harming that government. Trust me. There's not an ounce of food that came off the plate of any people in the higher echelons of the North Korean government. So the people that you're only hurting with your sanctions and stuff are the citizens of the country who are innocent, So but this is another reason why I'm a libertarian and I believe in small government. If governments are smaller, there's more power to the people and the citizens who are the innocent ones in this situation. Governments, by their very nature, are corrupt and oppressive. That's what they do. They oppress. It's just a matter of how much oppression you're okay with. And me, I'm okay with very little. I'm okay with freedom. I'm okay with the freedom to fail and the freedom to have to ask for help from another private citizen if I do fail. If I'm hungry, I'm not afraid to, go to a church and say, hey, I need food. I'm not afraid of that. So I'm not afraid of the freedom and the freedom to fail either. So, it's just, that's the thing about liberty. With liberty, there comes risk. But if you like the security of having government oppression, because it's like me and Evolve were talking about last night, even the slaves were taken care of. They had a roof over their head, they had food, they didn't have to worry about somebody coming in and robbing them, but they were completely and fully oppressed by their slave masters. And that's the concept we have with government. It's how much oppression you're okay with. You know what I mean? If you want the government to feed you and clothe you and put a roof over your head, then you're going to have to be okay with the level of oppression that comes with. So I'm okay with being free and not having a roof over my head and wondering where my next meal is coming from. If it's up to me to take care of that, I can handle that. And I'm okay with me also being able to help those who can't do that. through charity and stuff like that. And I give to my church. My church helps those who are less fortunate as well. It's a mandate of the Christian church is to help the less fortunate. So, but yeah, so that's the concepts of libertarianism. Another little breakdown of it. He already made his tags on the Cubs. You gonna shoot it as a video? Do you have a YouTube channel? Because I'd love to check out the it could be like that it could be like the ice bucket challenge and all that stuff. The challenge, whatever you're gonna put on the cup, you could do. It'd be like the Devolvi challenge, That would be cool, especially seeing all these kids, do their own version of it, like the Avengers over. Who's the bad guys? Oh, Thanos. What? I don't know. You could have the kids do anything, Minecraft over Fortnite. If by world peace it is meant the complete absence of conflict among and within nations, then it may well be impossible. You're absolutely right, Libertarian Devil. That's but it's just because it may be very well be impossible doesn't mean it's not something that we should strive for as a society. I bet you 2,000 years ago they thought the abolition of slavery was all but impossible as well. But here we are. They thought the abolition of monarchies, oppressive monarchies or empires was all but impossible. But here we are. An actual imperial or monarchy type of government is almost not existent now, when that was, 1,000 years ago or 500 years ago even, that was the primary government. That's the primary type of government. I think the inspiration of the United States as being as it started out as this experiment in freedom, was an inspiration for the rest of the world. So I think it's that shifting point as a society, as a human race, we evolve beyond that. So, I think it's a good, it may seem like an impossibility to us now, but it's very well, anything is possible, I guess is what I'm saying. I watched your Friday podcast and it was very interesting. The only thing that bothers me is that you two have one of the best podcasts on this platform and get no recognition. Michelle, I just mentioned that earlier. It seems like, the media really tries to quiet libertarian voices. Mainstream, social, and of course politics. It is, and that we talk about this because the significance of getting Jo Jorgensen, our presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party, the significance of getting her on the debate stage for the presidential debates is really the primary focus of the Libertarian Party movement during every election cycle, every general election, when we have a presidential nominee. That's really the focus. And we now are focused on trying to do this. Now, we don't have the money that the Democrats and the Republicans do, so we can't buy those ads and stuff. Like, every time my video goes off, I get a Joe Biden ad. I'm like, what in the world? Because my videos, the tag that I use is news and politics, right? So that's the subject that I talk on. So it's like anytime you turn on my video, you're probably going to get a Joe Biden or a Donald Trump ad, so we need Joe Jorgensen ads. So that's why we really seek donations and stuff, because we have to pay for it. We don't have all these massive donors and media and stuff that's willing to propagate our agenda. And it just seems like there's like this conscious effort to keep us, to quiet that libertarian voice. And it makes sense, because if libertarians get elected, the government loses power. You know what I mean? We're going to give power back to the citizens, back to you. You're going to have the power. And the government, of course, wants to try to hold on to that power. And I think that's the reason. And because the media has so much control of the government, because the government has so much power, there's just this propagation. I don't want to say it's a conspiracy theory, but I just think it's this conscious effort to quiet this libertarian voice. So it's up to us to try to get as loud as we possibly can in order to force the media to cover us. And the only way we do that is to get more citizens actually talking about us. So I know, I think Joe's up to like 45,000 followers on Twitter, and Spike's probably close to that too. So, I mean, that's the thing. The reason why the only way we're going to get on the debate stage is if we make it to where, because the Democrats and Republicans run the debate, it's their show, it's their party. So the only way we're going to get invited is if we make it where they cannot deny us, where it will actually be more harmful to them to not let Joe Jorgensen on the stage. And the only way we're going to do that is to shift public opinion in our favor. So we have to do that through media, through getting the word out. And right now it's just a grassroots thing because no media wants to cover us. If we get any coverage on CNN, MSNBC, or any of the major networks, it's usually in a time slot where hardly anybody's watching. You know, so we end up having to rebroadcast those things. Any libertarian, not even Joe Jorgensen, it's any libertarian. Like right now, did you know that Joe Jorgensen yesterday and today is in Minneapolis, Minnesota for Juneteenth? I mean, she went to the sites of the protests and she's speaking to community leaders and helping out in the community, volunteering and stuff. So she's in Minneapolis, Minnesota right now. And now I think this morning she's making herself available for media interviews. But yesterday and today for Juneteenth, she went to the heart of all the protests. She went to the place where George Floyd was murdered, and that's where she's spending her time. But I bet you none of you knew that because the media doesn't cover her. You know, but if Donald Trump or Joe Biden were there, or even Nancy Pelosi or Mitch McConnell or any of these other people, you know, Elizabeth Warren or even Tulsi Gabbard or anybody was there doing the same thing, then it would be mainstream news, you know. But it's just Joe Jorgensen, the Libertarian Party candidate for president, you know, who's actually polling really well right now. So yeah, I'm like I said, I don't like to get into conspiracy theories. I always like to try to connect dots, and it just seems like there's this conscious effort to keep us quiet, you know. But with social media and people like you, I think it makes it really difficult when it's so easy for people with a libertarian voice to find a platform to speak out on, you know, like Twitter and YouTube and stuff, and Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, all those different social media platforms. You know, it's really easy, and it's just a matter of getting libertarians to be able to articulate our policies and planks and platforms, PPP, policies, planks, and platforms, in a way that is understandable and easy to consume for average citizens. So that's really what we have to focus on. Yes, you'll film it. He was practicing Devolvi speech. Kind of makes me proud. That's awesome. I can't wait to see it. See, I want to. I mean, that's really. I don't know. I mentioned this before. I really want to get to 1,000 subs so I can have that community tab in YouTube. Because it would be cool if you post a link or something in the community tab. Or so you're gonna post it on your YouTube channel? Because that would be cool. I'd like to watch it now. I'm going to see if you have a YouTube channel. I see Hoopla Digital, but I don't think that's you. Oh, I'm like, I got this transparency thing going on, don't I? That's kind of weird, man. Is my light shining in my face or something? I'm invisible! There should be no... the opacity is maxed out, so where is this weird glint coming from? Nope, so we're losing it there. Is it smoothness? I don't know about that either. This is weird. Huh. This weird looking... Oh, maybe it's just a shadow. Yeah, it's just a shadow. Okay. Oh, I'm tripping. So, I think I had one more article I was going over. Do a podcast on how the world will change if we bring back slavery. Oh, Jesus. Nah. I'm not a fan of doing hypotheticals. I'll briefly go hypothetical, but to do a whole podcast on a hypothetical, especially if it was completely anti-libertarian, I really wouldn't. You know what I mean? Like slavery is the most unlibertarian thing there is. So, I mean, I could talk on it. It'd be interesting if the question comes up. Like during next time I have Evolve on, me and Evolve that would be an interesting conversation me and Evolve could have. What would it be like if we brought back slavery? Maybe reparations would be, white people would be the slaves now, and I don't know. We could we could touch on that hypothetical, I guess. The last article I was looking at talking about was Hong Kong. Hong Kong is an interesting city. The libertarians like to point it out as a great example of how the free market works to increase prosperity for everybody. So Hong Kong has very little GDP, gross domestic product, but they actually have an economy that is equal to and sometimes even better than the U.S. economy, even with less GDP, gross domestic product. So they don't really produce a lot of their own stuff to export to the rest of the world, because Hong Kong is just a city. But when they were first freed from British rule, they had the most freest market system that there was. So it just created this massive amount of wealth. All this entrepreneurship and innovation and stuff started coming out of Hong Kong. Because there was very little licensing and very little regulation on the market. The government pretty much just let the economy go, and it boomed. It exploded. I mean, Hong Kong is huge economically, and with producing very little products themselves. So it's one of the best cases we have for how the free market and capitalism actually works. Well, now, Hong Kong now has belonged to the Chinese, I think, since 1996, right? 97. So it returned to Chinese rule in 97. And now I guess China is starting to focus more on Hong Kong, and they are looking at passing some legislation specifically from the National Security Office for Hong Kong. They're going to collect intelligence and handle crimes against national security, which crimes against national security, possibly means something different when you're in a communist-controlled country. I'm just going to leave that there. So they said the Hong Kong leader could also appoint specific judges to hear national security cases. A move that will likely to unnerve some investors, diplomats, and business leaders in the global financial hub. Yeah, so it's a big global financial hub now. Hong Kong is. National security activities will protect human rights and freedom of speech and assembly, it added, without providing details. That's interesting that China would allow Hong Kong. Maybe it was part of the agreement from Britain to hand Hong Kong back to China, was that these freedoms would be, because there's not a whole lot of freedom of speech and human rights and freedom of assembly in China. That's why they were using that animal video game from Nintendo as a platform to protest, because they don't have that in China. But I guess in Hong Kong they do, and I'm suspecting that it's some kind of agreement they had. between the Hong Kong government whenever they were given back to China. So China says the draft law is aimed at tackling separatist activity, subversion, terrorism, and collusion with foreign forces, but critics fear it will crush wide-ranging freedoms that are seen as key to Hong Kong's status as a global financial center. The details of the law were unveiled following a 3-day meeting of the top decision-making body of China's parliament. The exact time frame for enacting the law was unclear, although political analysts expect it will take effect ahead of key legislative council elections in Hong Kong on September 6th, which is my birthday. So I guess Hong Kong's having so it's supposed to happen before Hong Kong elections on September 6th. So, a fun cast on all the different things that would go down. You know, Joy, I'm not doing. I announced yesterday I'm not going to do Friday podcasts anymore, so it's going to be Tuesday and Saturday mornings because I get two different audiences. I really get this international audience on Saturday morning, which I really enjoy. I like looking at world politics too, not just focusing on the United States. And then Tuesday I'm going to go a little bit later in the evening. I'm going to start at 6 my time, local time, which is 5 p.m. Pacific and 8 p.m. Eastern time in the United States. 6 is like 6 a.m. India time. It's easy because you just add or subtract 12 hours. If it's 6 p.m. here, like right now, it's probably 8:30 in India right now. So that's my point. That's why I'm switching them up. So maybe on Tuesday's podcast, if somebody jumps in there and brings that up, let me message Evolve and see if he wants to talk about it on the next podcast. Just as a reminder, if both of us know, then maybe asking us to cover hypothetical. Oh boy, hypothetical. What if? What was the question exactly? What if we bring back slavery? So yeah, maybe we'll, if both of us know, then we might, pretty sure the Evolve will be breaking out all those guns he have hidden around the house, right? Right? Trying to make ends meet, you're a slave to money, then you die. No, I don't think you're a slave to money. Money is just a means to an end. You can't be a slave to something that's inanimate. You know what I mean? I guess you could, enslave yourself to money, but if you allow it to control you, I don't. That's debatable, I'll say. You talk death a lot. Is everything okay? Libertarian devil talks philosophically. So they change it to Libertarian Confucius. So why do we fear death so much? One of the primal fears that our brain creates is fear of the unknown. Maybe that's it. No, I think I have this discussion before. It's part of our natural DNA. It's not really a fear of death that is ingrained. It's self-preservation. We have to have this will to exist. Otherwise, there's movies about it where the need to persevere or the need to exist disappears, and people just walk in front of cars and stab themselves in the head with a pencil and stuff like that. Remember that? I think it's the one with the wind. You know, the leaves blow, the wind comes by, and then people just start banging their heads against walls until they die, and you know, that whole need to exist doesn't. So I don't know if it's so much a fear of the unknown, or if it's that natural built-in instinct to exist, you know, to self, you know, to not die, you know. So I mean, if we didn't have that, then it would be really hard to continue our existence. It would be like lemmings. You know what lemmings are? There's a video game, Lemmings, and the whole point was they would just walk off cliffs, right? These little dudes that just walk off cliffs. They're actually a real creature, though. So you had to build all these little structures in order to keep the lemmings going, so they didn't die, because they would just walk off cliffs. I mean, you know, but yeah, there really should be no fear of death. I know Buddhism talks about this a lot. It's like, why would you fear the eventual conclusion of life? I mean, it's like fearing the end of the race. You know, I don't have any fear of death. I mean, I don't want to die, but I have no fear of it. I mean, it's just the ultimate end of my existence, you know, of this existence. And I move on to whatever the next existence is. You know, me, I believe that I rejoin God, and you know, I become part of that, part of the heaven, as you would call it, the separation from space and time. You know, I become one with God again. So you talked. Why do we fear creates one of our primal fears? Yeah, embrace death. No, I'd rather not. It's funny, you guys, Thomas and Michelle, you got no, I'd rather not. It's like you both had your own conversation. I don't think you should embrace it, but I mean, I think it's something that it's just a natural end of our existence, you know. It's nothing that I fear. Allows us to learn to be more present, to enjoy the only thing that we really have here and now, knowing that each day that we live, we are one day closer to death, gives us a unique perspective. It allows us to more deeply savor each experience. It provides us context on the preciousness of life and what really matters. That's really beautiful. That's beautiful. So I don't think you need to really embrace it as much as just not fear it. There is a lot. It's really healthy. What Libertarian Devil is saying is actually a really healthy perspective on death, as just realizing it, that it's just embracing it as a natural part of life, because that's what it is. You know, it's just something that comes at the end of life. It's something that we should avoid. You know, we should. You know, what I think people should really focus on is living now. Taking care of your health so that you could live your best life and make your biggest impact by taking care of your health and not becoming a burden on other people with illness that you could prevent with lifestyle and stuff like that. Just living a healthier lifestyle. I really shifted my focus for my life about when I retired 7 or 8 years ago, because what am I at now? 7 years. Yeah, this will be 7 years in October. I'm retired. So, but you know, I think that's significant. I learned that, you know, most military retirees don't live like a majority of the military retirees. U.S. military retirees don't live beyond 10 years after retirement. And when I retired, I just had 2 babies. You know what I mean? It was. You know, David was just born, and my wife was pregnant with Gabriel, and I was like, man, I'm not going to leave her with these 2 kids in less than 10 years. So I really had to shift my focus to paying attention to my health, you know. And then I don't want my kids taking care of me, you know, unnecessarily, because I have all these chronic diseases and stuff that were preventable if I just made some lifestyle changes. So I just made a significant change in my life, and me and my wife's been super supportive, and, you know, right along as, as a team doing this health and wellness thing that we did. I did health coaching, and I really focused on natural ways to improve my health, and it's been terrific. So and yeah, so I think that's what people really need to focus on, instead of embracing death so much. Embrace life, and start realizing that this stuff that you're shoving down your gullet is because you are what you eat, and this nasty food that you keep eating, it gives you that that little tiny moment of enjoyment, but the damage that it's doing to your body is significant, and it's ongoing, and it's chronic. It's going to last a long time. So we really need to start focusing on non-processed and natural foods and stuff in a way that we were designed, that our bodies were designed to consume. So and trust me, just with that little bit of advice, trying to get back to our natural, because believe it or not, human beings are part of nature. We are part of nature. Now, the rest of the world existed before God placed us on the earth, but we are part of this natural environment, this natural ecosystem of the earth. We are the rulers, so to speak, as humans, but we are part of this natural environment. So getting back to nature is a good way to start improving your health. Eating seasonally, diet variation, eating different things, not the same thing, and avoiding processed stuff and stuff with excess amounts of chemicals and stuff like that too. Of course, the Buddhist would say that's a good point. It really sounded kind of Buddhist, didn't it? Death is life's greatest gift, for with it the value of life is increased. It's a good point. Good point. And then Michelle says, nope, the devil really liked death. He does have good points, though, philosophically and stuff. Looking at some of the great teachers of our time have jumped on that topic, and there's really a lot of good philosophical stuff out there about death and dying. Wow, I'm getting a glare. That's where the light's coming from. It's the sun is reflecting off the window of my truck into my window here, right into my face. So I guess that means it's time to wrap this thing up. Oh. Evolve says he's like, that would be a funny topic for sure, but with Juneteenth protests and stuff, probably not a good time for it now. To do the what if we brought slavery back thing. But if you jumped on a podcast and asked the question, then we would probably have a little discussion about it for sure. He said June is definitely not a time for that. So we'll check it out. Hey, I'm gonna wrap this up. I did have what scripture did I want to share with you? That was one. Where is it at? Nope. I guess I didn't. I was looking for. I'm not going to be able to find it in any of these. I'm not a biblical scholar, so I can kind of go over it. I don't know what the scripture is, but it's the scripture where the Israelites asked God for a king. Let me see if I can find it. I bet you I can Google it pretty quick. Scripture. That's the one I want to. Looks like it's 1 Samuel 8. Let's say, give us a king to lead us. And the Lord told them, listen to all the people what you are saying to you. It is not you that have rejected, but they have rejected me as their king. In other words, This is another big libertarian quote. It says that because Israel was asking for a king, the Lord said, "You're denying me as your king because you're asking for a king." In other words, you're asking for somebody to rule you because you refuse to be ruled by me. And it's funny because I just posted a thing on my private page because Facebook page. It was a quote from somebody I got in the Libertarian Christian Institute who said the utopian government that Christians seek is a libertarian monarchy with Jesus as the king. So we have this absolute freedom, but we have this monarch who is Jesus, who is all love, right? He's the ultimate embodiment of love and understanding and acceptance and all that stuff. So libertarian monarchy with Jesus as the king. So, and it kind of goes back into 1 Samuel where he says, if you are asking for a king, then you're denying me, God, as your king. So the Lord told him, this is not broken down biblically. This is 1 Samuel 8. Okay, so this is what he says that the king will do to you. This is what the king who will reign over you will do. He will take your sons and make them serve with his chariots and horses, and they will run front of his chariots. They will run in front of his chariots. So, like the military. Some he will assign to be commanders of thousands, to be commanders. Oh, wow, TJ's birthday, huh? Where was I? Commanders of thousands and commanders of 50s, and others to plow his ground and reap his harvest, and still others to make weapons of war and equipment for his chariots. He will take your daughters to be perfumers and cooks and bakers. He will take the best of your fields and vineyards and olive groves and give them to his attendants. That's crony capitalism, what he's talking about right there. He will take 1/10 of your grain and of your vintage and give it to officials and attendants. Again, crony capitalism. Basically taking the fruits of other people's labors and giving it to people that are serving him. Your men servants and maid servants and the best of your cattle and donkeys he will take for his own use. He will take 1/10 of your flocks, and yourselves will become his slaves. When that day comes, you will cry out for relief from the king you have chosen, and the Lord will not answer you in that day. So this is what Samuel was telling them, that the message from God. And you could see all those things happening within our government, the government enslaving, the government taking the fruits of your labor, that's taxation, all these things that God basically cursed the Israelites with for asking for a king, instead of putting God as king, like it should be, and allowing him to rule our lives. He's, placing a government as king. So, and that is 1 Samuel chapter 8. Let me see if I can find the actual verses. It's 1 Samuel 8. 1 Samuel 8. Yeah, it's just that whole chapter, I think. Yeah, all the way through 19. And they said, "We want a king over us. Then we will be like all the other nations, with a king to lead us and go out before us and fight our battles." So they gave him a king, Saul. Samuel granted him a king, Saul. So yeah, that's my scripture I want to leave you with today. Thanks so much. Still waiting for Devolvi to give an India type episode. Okay. We'll see what we can do. I'm all about the community. I don't know what you mean by India type episode, but India type episode. So yeah, I just messaged Evolve with it, and about a India type episode for Devolvey. But we'll see what we come up with, or I don't know exactly. Post in the comments, Bruno's, what do you mean by India type? Like put some India music in it and something like that. Just let me know what you mean by India type. So I'm gonna get going, guys. Send my family off to Grandma's house and probably jump on some Call of Duty later on today. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Like I said, I won't be going live anymore on Fridays, so it'll be Saturday mornings and Tuesday evenings. I love you all. Be safe. Love your neighbor. As always, God bless you. And KIP, keep it positive. I'm not even ready to shut this thing down yet, and here I am talking. We are very into foods and seasons, so something along those lines. Foods and seasons. Okay. Oh, and have a great weekend. Enjoy the weekend. It's beautiful weather out there, at least here it is. And like I said, love your neighbor and enjoy life. Smile and spread the message of liberty, please. Share my content. Thanks a lot. Love you all.